All right, well, game one begins now. Kolento, probably the one that people will give the slight nod to, simply just because of how hot he's been. And he advanced in first place in his group once more, as maybe he'll keep his championship hopes alive. He is the returning winner of VGVN 2, so people are hoping that he can continue that streak. In the meantime, Savjz hasn't had a win in a while. He's won several tournaments, but it's been a couple months since he's got a first place finish. So, well, other than this qualifier, I presume. And from here, I think Savjz will want to have the opportunity to get another gold medal in his lineup.
Yeah, definitely. And Savjz, I guess Savjz and Fake are the two first open bracket winners to make it through the semifinals. So you're kind of playing for a lot of people here.
Sure. They both have a lot of fans, and I think we're going to start off with some pretty good curve here from Savjz. He has a lot of options at disposal to put out creatures to make his board very effective. I like it. Just, again, Swarm Miracle Rogue, try to put on pressure. These sticky minions most likely will pick up some kind of defensive Argus value, and Kolento is going to have to deal with this pretty early, because as much as you might think, 2-3 damage a turn, it really starts racking up quickly.
Yeah, definitely. And he already has that low tab, so a pretty key card in the matchup. And he's not interested in innovating it out early, because he wants to play in a turn where he would, where Kolento would want to play a lot of spells, which is not turn 3. So he decides to just innovate the Harvest Golem instead.
Yeah, Lotheb can come out and seal a lot of damage too. Say his opponent is using hero power a lot to trade, and then all of a sudden you lock things down. You buff it up with Defender of Argus, your target, so it's slightly out of range, and then Lotheb denies your opponent the ability to make big plays and AoE sweep. It's pretty devastating, and Savjz can just flat out win by making sure Rogue can never use their weapon to attack anymore, and then from there just Savage Roar out of the game. Now, meanwhile, in Kolento, he's kind of introduced with a couple of interesting choices where he can't really deal with the threats all at the same time, so he chooses to sap and take away the momentum and tempo gain through Innervate. But it's just going to come right back, and the problem is going to present himself once again.
Yeah, well, this is the most liberal use of sap from Miracle Rogue I've ever seen, I think. Just turn 3 wants to stem the bleeding. Kolento does have a lot of removal spells in his hand, but all of his opponent's creatures are super resilient. You have to kill them over and over again. It doesn't actually accomplish much to just backstab something. So he just uses that sap to effectively remove that creature from the board, because he imagines that Savjz is just not going to replay it for many turns. So it acts as a removal spell that doesn't trigger Death Rattle. So pretty good play by Kolento here.
All right, Kolento picks up Preparation. It's starting to look decent hand if he had the Gadgetzan Auctioneer. But until then, it's just kind of hoping he's able to draw something like that. As he does have some key cards, and he might want to wait for the Azure Drake to come out before he uses Backstab. So it seems like this turn is more like a weapon up pass of some degree, but he's going to attack this this Haunted Creeper beforehand. And what is he playing? What is he playing for when he attacks his spider here, PV?
Well, probably either he's playing around Defender of Argus, which is coming down, or he just wants to be able to kill the spider and then use the Blade Flurry that he has, or a potential top deck Fan of Knives to clear the spiderlings. I'm assuming the possibility of that happening is worth the 1 damage that he took. That's from his point of view.
All right, well, the Defender of Argus does come down, and the game plan of Druid is pretty straightforward. Savjz just making sure to stack and be aggressive. Kolento has the opportunity to prep something out, maybe backstab as well. It's a little tricky because you want to stop taking damage as much as possible, but you don't want to expend too many resources here and waste everything.
Yeah, I mean, at this point you want to backstab the 2/3, but if you do that, you run the risk of not having those spells by the time you draw action here. So, there are costs. Even though it costs 0, it's, just losing that card is a significant cost, but it's probably not going to get much better than that.
That's right. A mechanic that often isn't exactly obvious is when stealth minions get taunt and they're still in stealth, you don't actually have the taunt active. So Kolento can bypass that until the Shade of Naxxramas reveals itself. And in the meantime, Savjz still seems to be holding his Shade of Naxxramas, And that's one of the characteristics of a player who has experience with this card, because a lot of times players are very anxious to get the attack off now that it's been powered up a little bit. And it seems like Savjz is going to be very selective with his timing on it, when to be aggressive here.
Yeah, for sure. Though if Kolento plays low tab here, that will kind of force Savjz to react, I think. It will at least force his own low tab. Which is not the optimal time to play it, because Kolento doesn't even have action here yet, but certainly a pretty good card. Now he feels safe attacking with the Shade, because that protects the low tab from an attack from his opponent's low tab. And his opponent can only cast one spell. So unless it's exactly Sap, he will have to cast Eviscerate and attack with the low tab into the Shade here. So not a good position for Kolento. His opponent has a lot of damage.
Yeah, how does Kolento deal with something like this? Does he... you want to save Blade Flurry with like Deadly Poison and get value, but that's another way you can use if you don't want to waste Eviscerate here. Other than that, there's not many ways to get past this Shaded Naxxramas wall. And Kolento is already at 17 HP. Oh man, trading your own health. That is really painful. And that's actually game already, because Savjz has Force of Nature. This is something that Kolento had to make a tough choice, I believe, if he wanted to keep the resources in hand, but this is already game.
Yeah, and Kolento put himself that to a lot of things there, Savage Roar Swipe. The Force of Nature that his opponent had. But, he felt like he had no choice. He couldn't just spend an Eviscerate and an attack to kill the 6/6 and pass the turn, having no board versus his opponent having 2 creatures and having the advantage.
So can even it up here. Paladin is one of those slower decks. Yesterday, it breeded some of the longest games yet in VGVN history, as a lot of the games went to fatigue. And I don't think it'll be the case in this game, but if Paladin ends up coming here, or even winning and then going into a mirror match, well, let me tell you, Paulo, I've casted some really long Paladin versus Paladins in the past, and some of them last like 30 minutes, so we could be in here for a while.
Yeah, we definitely could. And Kolento here, I'm sure if he didn't have Wild Pyromancer, he wouldn't even think about keeping the Holy Light. Since he does have it, he considered maybe being able to use that effect, the spell effect, but decides that in the end, he's just not interested. And well, a very good start for Savjz. It's the best start you could possibly hope for, which is a turn 1 Shade of Naxxramas, which is only going to get bigger.
That's right. Only to be countered by, what is it, like, you can't even counter a turn 1 Shade, at least in the normal, like in a reasonable means. Like, the only way you can counter a turn 1 Shades, from what I imagine, is like Arcane Missiles or like Mad Bomber, cards that no one's really playing right now. So you're just going to have to deal with it. And Savjz just goes for the immediate attack and says, you know what, I'm not going to wait too long, because I recognize that there's a lot of opportunities for Paladin to answer it if I wait long, so I'm going to try to get as much damage as I can now.
Yeah, and what can Kolento do? He has Humility in his hand, but if he plays it, the Shade's just going to get bigger anyway. So it's going to shrink it. It's a temporary thing, but it doesn't stop its ability.
Right. And it goes down to the idea that Savjz realizes Paladin plays slow, and if you try to slow play it, wait with the Shades of Naxxramas and try to like make it grow really big, not only can they answer it, but they can rebound easily with all the heals and taunts to make Shade a lot less effective. So he's doing his best to try and put pressure. He even thought about Savage Roaring to take out the Wild Pyromancer and push. And now Shade Naxxramas has to start over. He's a 1/1, and next turn he's just going to be a 2/2.
Yeah, it's going to potentially get hit by its Stampeding Coder next turn. But, there's still that Golem there that could absorb the hit. And also this Keeper.
Yeah, you're really hoping the Harvest Golem takes the hit. You don't lose any power on board, and you'll still have 4 minions. Kolento could whiff here. Oh, but he's got double Kodo, and that could be useful, unless he hits 2 Harvest Golems with it.
Yeah, even if the Kodo doesn't...
Oh, man.
Doesn't flat out kill the Shade, it still threatens to kill it next turn, so it forces a response since it's a 3-power guy. But, Savjz has a lot of ways to get rid of it. He could just play a taunt of his own, or could play a low tab and just, not care that his Shade is dying, or could attack him with the other 2 creatures and hero power. This is to go for the aggression here.
Hmm. It is, and it's interesting because it's a stronger minion, and he's not putting out something like Druid the Claw because it's more flexible with something like Savage Roar on turn 8. Although, if you had the option, an alternative to play Druid the Claw to protect your smaller minions, so that way Shade Naxxramas doesn't just die here. But I think he recognizes his opponent has a lot of options to deal with it, and you know, if you just play Druid the Claw defensively, he might miss this opportunity to sneak in damage and also shut down his opponent's ability to go for a board wipe.
Yeah, definitely. Now he's looking at, 13 damage.
Oh man, hitting
Not
the
too
damage
last.
golem. So this keeper can trade now and be effective, or maybe Savjz can use swipe or even Savage Roar with some of the damage that he has right here.
Yeah, I like Savage Roar more because, Swipe is guaranteed damage next turn, whereas Savage Roar's damage could be stopped by a board clear or a taunt guy. So this way you make sure Kolento's at 1 life, and he can't even play Guardian of Kings, so he has to heal himself some other way and get rid of the board.
Oh gosh, this is so painful. Kolento's gonna bounce back to 7 health. The Veets will lose one of the minions on board. Most likely the Keeper of the Grove. Although, actually, do you kill the Keeper of Grove or do you kill off the Lotheb in hopes that your opponent can have silence, like a second Keeper?
I think you have to kill Keeper so that you don't die to Swipe.
Alright, well. That
Yeah, no,
4
Kolento-
damage comes from Druid the Claw, and Swipe is going to be a finisher. Does Kolento have another way to stay alive? This pressure from the Druid has been insane.
No, it looks like he doesn't. He's just dead to the hero power here. Oh, so 2 very, very fast games.
Wow.
And
And that's a
taking-
really important win for Savjz here. He even had Black Knight, so if a taunt. And this series 4-0. Last time what happened in the semifinals, it was very one-sided both ways. It was 4-0 and 4-1. And I really hope that's not the case here, but it doesn't look like Savjz has any signs of slowing down at the moment.
Yeah. And Kolento's got to be feeling a lot of pressure here because if he wins this game, he'll probably have to face the same matchup he just lost, which was Paladin versus Druid. But I think he knows it's a favorable matchup for Paladin. He knows his opponent got a great draw and he wasn't super lucky. So he will be on the receiving end of that matchup next time.
Oh my. Well, Kolento ends up curving pretty decently with a turn 1 Harvest Golem innervated. And then now he picked up the Haunted Creeper. Otherwise, he was left top decking. And just basically hero powering if he didn't draw anything else. But it seems like Savjz also had a relatively slower start where he's not able to use his coin to match the card that Innervate was putting out. And this is the power of starting off really fast. The tempo is really key here in this Druid matchup, so that way you don't lose momentum on board.
Yeah, I mean, if you manage, Kolento's position is very comfortable. It's still very early, his opponent has time to react. But what you want to be doing is you want to be the guy who has the board when you pass the turn. So if you ever have to react, just for example, you have no board, then your turn has to be swipe pass. That's really bad for you. You really want to have the last minion standing. And now at least that Shade is going to make sure that, Kolento cannot clear his opponent's board. So another instance of it being very important that he cannot be hit the turn it comes into play.
Wow, yeah, this is a moment just to think. As much as it's clear that you don't want to use your spells a little wastefully, you always kind of think whether or not it's worth using Savage Roar here. And with just 9 damage, I don't think so. But there is merit to just analyzing if there's enough damage in your hand to do something like this. And obviously, we know it's a smarter play considering how much Savjz can improve the board the next couple turns. Say he drops Defender of Argus. Next turn, he can drop an Echoing Ooze that's taunted, and then there's just a lot of smaller minions. And he's going to need to keep something like Savage Roar to maybe clear as opposed to do damage.
Yeah, for sure. So it's probably... Oh, I was going to say he doesn't even use this coin because he wants to Echoing Ooze Defender of Argus next turn. But apparently, thinks it's fine to wait a turn for that. It just, again, does not attack with that Shade. Doesn't want to expose it to a swipe, I assume.
Yeah, well, he's gonna go for a very defensive play. I guess he's recognizing that there's a lot of pressure that his opponent can be on. And his opponent might be coming up on a turn where he has to put out a 5-minute cost minion that's going to be 4/6. So the matchup has slowed down a lot all of a sudden. And Savjz kind of has the initiative with what he can do, considering that his opponent has chosen to not attack, and he's got the stronger minions overall on board.
Yeah, and his opponent has to attack the druid because it has taunt, but Savjz is free to attack whatever he wants.
Huh. All right. Well, Kolento all of a sudden has found his aggression completely halted, but he picks up Wrath, so some removal spells for the swiping combination, and he can kind of resume as scheduled.
Yeah,
and he's got Force of Nature Savage Roar, which is going to hit a little bit earlier than his opponent's.
Yeah, his opponent's already at 17, whereas he's at 31. So even though his opponent's hand does seem significantly better, Kolento still has a lot of ways to win this game. Ooh, and the Shade finally attacks.
Yeah, picking up the easy trade. Now, Savjz did take a lot of beating. Oh, good thing he did, because look, Kolento could have even comboed this turn.
Yeah, so what does Kolento do here? He's probably going to kill the Shade, but what else? Does he just play a druid in taunt mode and hope to absorb some of the hits? Hope his opponent's best plan is just trading with it? Or does he just spam his combo to clear the board? But if he does that, how does he win? His best way to win here seems to be just killing his opponent before his opponent can make the board matter. And if he spams the combo to clear the board, then that venue is gone. Then how does he win? He has to top deck a bunch of Ancient of Lores.
Yeah, it's definitely one of them if you choose to go for a mass removal here. Well, this is attacking into the 6-1 for sure. I think it's a question of whether or not you want to get removal immediately, or do you want to set up the bear form and get taunt, and hopefully these things have to trade into it. But of course, that's very wishful thinking, considering there's lots of ways for the druid to put out damage, so that way the same amount of trades happen anyways. If you attack one minion, most likely it'll die something like Keeper the Grove or Swipe, and the same thing might happen on the other end.
Yeah, I think at this point, I thought Kolento was going to go for the defensive minion, or the taunt. But apparently not. He just wants to clear the board before a Savage Roar can happen.
Yeah, it's really aggressive move. It's something that's counterintuitive to a lot of players when they're first playing a Druid the Claw, because even players do this against a deck like Zoo. Normally, the Druid player against Zoo wants to get a lot of value off of cards like Druid the Claw. But then, if you put it in charge form, you get to dictate the trades that often happen. Not necessarily in this scenario, but in other ones where you might want to pick off a smaller minion, so that way it makes it more awkward for your opponent. So a lot of times, Druid the Claw can be played aggressive as just like a 5-mana double removal card.
Yeah, that's definitely a very, very strong card. And so it's picked one of his own. So that's probably going to wait. Savjz, what do you do here? You Defender of Argus to trade with that Ancient of Lore?
It doesn't sound too bad. Play Harvest Golem and Defender up, put 2 targets on.
Yeah, Kolento did draw 2 of his other very powerful minions, So that's almost all of his late game that's already in his hand. There's only one more Ancient of Lore in his deck.
I think you want to do that too, because you realize your opponent's coming up on turn 9, and he might have full combo as well, so it sounds like the strongest overall play.
Yeah, and he just wants to clear the board, and make sure that the combo is not too devastating. His opponent's at 27, so probably doesn't think it's going to matter if he hits the face.
Alright, now Kolento has to kind of be careful too. He says, if I go for a setup where I play one of my 5-drops, do I have to play Lotheb because I'm afraid of combo? But then Lotheb just easily gets picked off by Spectral Knight, so then the body is not actually very valuable. versus if you go for like you separate your combo, use Force of Nature for partially helping to clear. Is that giving up too much of your win condition? This is a little bit of a tricky situation for Kolento.
Yeah, I think Kolento's best play might be just to play low tap Force of Nature, which is not good. But as you said, like if he just plays that low tap, he's gonna trade with a 5-2 knight, and he doesn't want that happening. At the same time, if he just plays Force of Nature, he wastes two threes on a 3-3 guy that he could just wrath away. So not a lot of good choices for Kolento. He has choices, but none of them is particularly appealing.
Alright, well, expend Savage Roar with it, so he can go for some kind of board clear, taking a little bit of damage. You can get behind it. You just reset the board. Oftentimes, you're relying on the combo for power as a finisher, but don't forget how much the board does matter, especially if your opponent has the turn 9, and he had a lot of potential to do big damage with combo. So, a tough choice, but I think a necessary one for Kolento.
Yeah. And, you know, at least Kolento knows he has a lot of his late game in his hand already. So I think he doesn't, at this point, whereas before it looked like he was only going to be able to win with the combo, and he drew Ancient of Lore into Spectral Knight and low tap. So that changed the situation completely. And it was very well done of Kolento that he was able to reevaluate that and recognize it.
Okay, Kolento can put out Lotheb and Spectral Knight, but first you Wrath and see what you get. But I think Lotheb is a higher priority. You're at 15 health. You realize that it's going to be hard to survive if your opponent had a lot of damage. So respect the combo and place out the Lotheb.
Ooh, a great draw by Savjz. You know, meaning that he can play and that will definitely do something, whether it's healing himself and putting further away from combo range or just drawing 2 cards. And I think you have to go for 2 cards here. You're not going to survive the combo this turn anyway, and Kolento's already spent, you know, 1 of each.
Well, he's not going to survive the combo, but he's healing himself anyways. And let's see, 24. He certainly dies to a full set of second combo, but maybe he was also playing around a lot of other damage because there's 9 existing.
Yeah, maybe he's playing around 1 part of the combo.
Yeah, like probably just Savage Roar with like Swipe.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. You know, he thinks he doesn't need cards at this point. Kolento did draw the Force of Nature, so.
Alright, well, Savjz got some important intel. I was like, well, second Ancient of Lore is out, and it seems like my opponent doesn't have the combo and was using everything defensively. Now, he can deal with what's on board. It's a little bit tricky, but he too will also go for a combo and put his opponent most likely down to 1 health. Unless he's going to go for a clear, which I highly advise against because you're right there, so just might as well put the burden on your opponent to survive the next turn. Alright, Kolento needs Savage Roar off the top here.
Ooh, that doesn't do it. Yeah, Kolento could armor up, but that doesn't matter because his opponent has Keeper. So he can just shoot the face. Yeah.
Alright, so a gamble that pays off. Savjz does a fist pump, realizing like, woof. Well, that was my all-in play, realizing that he had only spells in hand, nothing on board to kind of get that repetitive damage in. Oh, hey, look, Black Knight, I guess, does get value in this match.
I must safeguard the land.
Yeah, and Kolento can't be happy about that, you know. He's down to his last deck and has to 4-0 his opponent to win now.
Wow. 0-3 off of this Druid deck. Oop. Oh, looks like he accidentally queued up right again. So we'll have to actually fix that administratively. Get live here.
Okay, so Kolento does have some of the early game cards he needs. He has a Taskmaster and a Stable Goal. Ooh, he doesn't want a Taskmaster. I guess, you know, it doesn't actually kill a lot of creatures in Savjz deck, so even though it's an early body, the effect is not that powerful, and he's just not interested.
Needs a Fiery War Axe of some sort to combine with like the unstable ghoul. And we're talking about Shay and Naxxramas and Spectre Knight as two of the important cards early game, and Savjz has both. And so that's gonna really sting for when he can use his Innervate and Spectre Knight and completely ruin Kolento's game plan.
Ooh, okay, so just decides to just go for the early Spectre Knight, knows there's nothing in Kolento's deck that can match it. One alternative would have been to just coin out the Shade here and next play the Innervate out the Spectre Knight next turn, but just decides to put that minion there.
That's actually such an important draw for Kolento here, so that way Unstable Ghoul kind of at least does something for him, other than 2 damage to Spectre Knight. And he's picked up Death Spite! Wow, 2 really big draws here for Kolento.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was exactly what he needed. That's probably the only card in his deck that dealt with that guy right now.
Oof, and a resounding no from the Warrior deck based off what's happened so far. Now, Savjz most likely wants to silence this Acolyte and deny any more draws, recognizing that most likely it's worth it. But he's also evaluating to see, is there a better play? I don't think so.
And ooh, it decides to kill it. Okay, so thinks the 1/2 bot is more important than one card. And does not attack with his Shade. Another is a silence out of the way, and Kolento could just place Ledge Belcher. You know, Shade will grow bigger than Ledge Belcher, but yeah, it's gonna take 1 damage from the death bite effect. So I'm guessing that Shade will have to wait for yet another turn if he doesn't want to trade her.
Yeah, I guess Savjz really didn't want the 1/2 to pop things like Execute. But, man, the extra draw ends up being pretty good, because Kolento now is 1 card deeper. He has his Execute. He has, another Death Spite, so he can kind of plan out his turn. Also really important as he has good combinations like Shield Block, Shield Slam, or Death Spite Execute. These help him to deal with bigger minions as the game scales. So Kolento seems to be coming out of the woods here, and I think he's going to be okay, barring any kind of crazy plays from Savjz in the next couple turns.
Yeah. So Kolento chooses to play the weapon instead of armoring up, and just trades that minion for the 5/5. Takes 5 damage in the process, but decides that board is more important than life at this point. He just gain life back later with his hero power, and board might be too hard to get back.
Alright, well, Kolento can start being defensive here. I mean, he's got some good late game cards already with Ysera at his disposal. Druid can't really deal with a card like that without Naturalize or Poison Seeds, 2 very situational cards that they rarely use now. So he can spend a lot of removal, be defensive, and armor up to a really healthy life total. And Shade Naxxramas is still being super passive.
Yeah, Kolento knows he has the edge last game, so late game, and he knows his opponent doesn't actually run a lot of late game minions, so he doesn't feel like he needs to save the removal for anything. He knows his opponent doesn't have a Ragnar and his arrow of his own, so feels free to use Execute and Shield Slam very liberally. And we finally see the Shade attacking.
That's right, the ever-patient Ghost here.
Yeah, this turn's probably just going to be, Karen armor for Kolento. Unless his opponent's only on 7 mana, so he probably wants to wait to play low tab when it would actually disrupt his opponent's curve. So if he does play that now, it stops his opponent from playing Swipe.
Do you really want to trade 6 life here to kill off the Shade? I think you do, because you have no other forms of removal, but Kolento doesn't want to dig for Shield Block to try and risk it. That could have been a pretty bad turn otherwise.
Yeah, you have to do it. The Shade is going to attack you for 7 if you don't do it now. It's only going to get worse. I think he's actually pretty happy to do that.
I think you're happy in the sense that, if you're stranded on the island and you somehow catch a infection, you have to amputate something. It's like, okay, I guess I have to. So happy is a very subjective word here.
It is better than the alternative. Yeah, I guess.
Sure. How much does Savjz want to extend it to something like Brawl? Haunted Creeper is his last minion effectively, and then he's just playing spells.
Yeah, I don't think he cares about extending that 100 creeper into a brawl.
Well, he has he can't play Savage Roar, sorry, Swipe and Force of Nature next turn, so he's only got 7 damage max from the hand.
Yeah, now it's I guess a decent spot for Kolento. I'm guessing he wants to play that low tab. He just doesn't just, doesn't want to just put himself bad to the combo here. But the question is, if he plays low tab now, can he beat the combo next turn? And I think he can, but clearing that board will be pretty hard.
Oh, definitely. There's so many sticky minions, and they leave something every single time. So you go for a lot of small removals, and there's still
Yeah.
something there, and every single body counts as +2 because of what your opponent can do. Now, there's also a school of thought where if you can get away without using Lotheb, the longer you can hold him, the stronger your plays will be as a way to deny combo over the course of turns. If you just remove a bunch of bodies this turn, then you feel like you won't die to combo, then Lotheb can wait. And then that buys you extra time. Because we know the longer this game goes, the warrior is starting to become more in favor. But it also comes down to a very scary guess from your opponent. So I think Kolento is not going to risk it. He says Lotheb has to come down now. Not to mention that it's also damage on board with something like Naxxramas. He could flip the switch and do 13 damage right back as opponent if he shows a lot of weakness. Like, say he plays his entire hand and nothing else happens.
So Kolento attacks the face here with Deathbite because he doesn't want to put himself dead to Savage Roar, which Savjz just drew.
Oh,
So if he attacked any minion, he would die this turn. So pretty good play from Kolento. And he wants to set up that Deathbite next turn because then he can kind of clear those minions and also get rid of their Death Rattle effect.
That is a really good observation. I did not notice that. And you're absolutely right. He has 13 damage. Savjz is 1 damage off killing his opponent right now. That's got to be really annoying. Because he can't hero power. Savage Roar costs 8.
Yeah. So things lining up perfectly for Kolento as far as they could. But, his opponent still has that combo for next turn. And how do you
but now
that?
you can remove completely, right?
but
You
you
attack
still
Death
need-
Spite, and you can bounce back up to 15 with Naxxramas, and the plays continue. He's going to be 1 out of the range, and the Death Rattle order is so important. Savjz needs to get Innervate in order to end this game.
Yeah, Savjz needs, Innervate or another form of direct damage spell. And if he doesn't kill, well, not even direct damage wouldn't even help because Kolento has that shield block. So it seems like if he doesn't kill Kolento now, he probably will not do that ever. And he can't do it now. So looking really great for Kolento here. Naxxramas conveniently putting him at 15, which is one more than the combo can deal.
Wow. I feel like Savjz might be even going for the kill here and realizing Wrath might be a top deck scenario where he needs to kind of get an extra draw. But this is so scary for the warrior deck, because if you don't have a way to bounce back or like a taunter of some kind, you can be in trouble. Ragnaros, it would be useful if he had the luxury of kind of going for it, but in this scenario, he's just hoping that his opponent doesn't have 8 damage.
Yeah, and he doesn't. Looks like, so it could still draw something, but yeah, looks like it's out at this point.
Yeah, Savjz has Wrath, which isn't enough, and I don't think, like, he only needed Ragnaros. That was basically his 1 outer, but he doesn't have it in his deck. And Kolento stays alive, 1-3, and it seems like he is kicking and alive here. But it's still kind of an uphill climb against some of the decks that Savjz has.
Yeah, such a close game here. It could have gone the other way if any
Be teammates back when they were just a clan of friends in early beta of Hearthstone. And now they're on opposing teams, but it seems like they're still helping each other, at least with some of the deck building and preparation. We see that Kolento is going to start off with Armorsmith, which is good to disincentivize a lot of the early tokens, and that's one of the key ways for Warrior to stabilize. It's the same way that the Warrior tries to approach the Shaman, where if you can control the board and make sure that their hero power never becomes an issue, then you can get really far ahead, and your threats, like Karen in the mid game, can come down safely, and then start really making work of whatever Paladin puts out.
Yeah, here it's not as important that you get armor from Armorsmith, because again, the game is not going to be about that, but it is super important that you deny their hero power.
Yes, well, there's also this thing of the Acolyte of Pain where you can kind of make it hard for your opponents to deal with it, but then you're in the back of your mind, you're worried about an easy trade like Cruel Taskmaster. So I think Shade Naxxramas is a slightly more safe play here.
Yeah, and Shade does get better, the earlier you play it.
Strike.
Oh yeah, definitely. You want to get at the extra +1/+1 buff.
Yeah, and he can kill the Armorsmith now. So that would, clear the way for... This turn is probably going to be Shieldmaster, but clear the way for Acolyte next turn.
Alright, so Kolento doesn't really get too much off of his Armorsmith, but at least a little bit of health and some damage. Gives him flexibility to utilize like his Execute and Shield Slams.
Yeah, has to Shield Slam the Taskmaster here, which is not what he was hoping for probably, but still retains, board parity at least. And now he's gonna start dropping big guys. A huge card picked up by Savjz. Harrison Jones, very important.
It's almost an insta keep. If you're ever playing a control matchup against Warrior and you're absolutely sure it's Warrior, Harrison Jones is one of those cards that Kit Kat says it's always a keeper because of its high impact. Not to mention it's just so good to replace itself in drawing a card. And of course, if Warrior ever gets sloppy and they just equip like a Fiery War Axe at the end of the turn and has 2 charges, then well, you're in for a very good day.
Yeah, and sometimes they just plan their entire game around the fact that they think they're going to have a weapon next turn. Imagine that last game. If Kolento's Death Bite had gotten destroyed a turn earlier, you were just completely demolished.
Oh yeah, for sure. Your game plan gets ruined. Now, this combination is always one of the favorites of Paladin, utilizing the Acolyte of Pain with some kind of attack reduction, whether it's Peacekeeper or Humility. It's one of the main card engine draws too, because Paladin, besides the cards that we see here with Harrison Jones and Acolyte, it's really just lay on hands, and then you don't really have a lot of card draw, so you're pretty reliant on this to carry you through the mid game and even the early stages, honestly. So Savjz is on a really good roll here. It seems like pretty much whatever comes out, he's got a perfect answer. He's got a quality in case things get too hairy, and he also has just perfect responses to whatever scenario that the Warrior can throw at him.
Yeah, now he wants to be greedy. He could even Holy Light his Acolyte of Pain and just keep attacking and drawing extra cards. Yeah, imagine he's not going to do that. But, ooh, interesting. Chooses to use hero power instead of playing Shade of Naxxramas. So it's trying to maximize cards as opposed to board presence. Doesn't think this game is going to be about tempo. Thinks this game is going to be about cards. Which is very sensible, I think, considering his opponent is at 34 and has a bunch of answers in his deck. So pretty good that recognizes what's going to matter here.
Oh yeah, Paladin games is a lot like life. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You have to really plan out the next course of 15 minutes of this game. Get mileage off of your hero power and recognize that your opponent could have board clears. He could have a lot of opportunities to completely make your cards go 1 for 2 or 1 for 3. So you want to try to maximize and make your opponent uncomfortable.
Yeah, so Kolento just finally decided to pull the trigger on that Karen, so getting his 4/5, which is probably just going to die to a weapon attack, I would imagine, once the unstable goal triggers.
Yeah, attacking with this Aldor Peacekeeper versus the other cards, you want to make sure not to give your opponent too much armor. So as much as you might feel like there's an opportunity to attack with Acolyte and evaluate based off of whatever you draw, you don't want to give your opponent a little bit too much armor, just a small tidbit there. So Savjz is really thinking through all of his plays. Kolento, in the meantime, he's struggling. He's just going to have a few cards, a few legendary threats, but most likely should be easily dealt with what Savjz has in hand.
Yeah, so he does have, one equality, his Sylvanas, his Silence, so he's Yeah, he's pretty well equipped.
Oh, oh man, it hits the face. And that is not a good sign whatsoever for Kolento. Savjz has many ways to deal with this.
Yeah, it is going to prompt a response though. There's at least that. Are we going to see an equality here? Just to deal with Ragnar's? You know,
I think I like Sylvanas and just hero power a little bit better. Because most likely Ragnaros is going to be uncomfortable
Yeah,
next turn. And
you're not really
you can't
worried.
just steal it, right?
Yeah, you're not really worried about your life though, because you're at 17 and you have Guardian of Kings and Holy Light if it comes to
Right.
that, so you don't really care if Ragnaros hits you.
Alright, well, Kolento does have the finishing combo of Deathbite and Grommash. And let's just say this, let's just assume this if Ragnaros ends up hitting like the face again, or even killing off the Sludge Belcher token. Is there a way for you to set this up for the next couple turns to win? Because it seems like Savjz's game plan is set for a while. And there's an opportunity for you to kill him before he's able to heal up. But it's kind of tricky here because Paladin has the board. Like you can set these things up with Deathbite and whatnot if you're able to kind of pick apart the trade. But from here, you're just fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah, and the problem here is that, you know, Savjz can just suicide his Sylvanas into the Ragnaros and just steal that. So if you make the play that, you know, is trying to go for damage, I'm not sure. It's not looking good for Kolento. I think his best choice is probably low tap. Yeah, low tap is so bad too because it runs into the Sylvanas and just lets us steal Ragnaros for free, so he can't really play that.
Yeah, I think you have to develop this Deathbite on the off chance that it gives you an opportunity to use Grommash. And in this Ragnaros, actually I think his best target is now to hit the face. And
Yeah,
not
could be.
Sylvanas. No, it hits Sylvanas. It needs to not take Ragnaros. Okay, well
Yeah,
at
but
least that,
that was-
the worst case scenario has been avoided.
That was actually fine because it prompted the Sylvanas trigger before his opponent could get rid of the Acolyte of Pain. So I don't think Kolento is super unhappy with that. He's definitely not super happy, but
Well, I mean,
You know.
he killed off Sylvanas pretty effectively. It's as if Acolyte traded places, so not bad, but still in a situation where he's still afraid of several things. That's for sure.
yeah, here Jizz will probably prompt, well, again, probably prompt a response from Savjz, who could kill those Ragnaros in a bunch of different ways. You know, could just attack it, and Harrison Jones or Consecration. That would kill it, but could also just play Humility, but that would expose all of his guys to the Death Spy trigger. So it seems like whichever way he decides to kill that.
He needs to attack with token first before he uses Harrison Jones. Okay.
Yeah, could, now that it's gone, could play Humility now, but decides to just attack instead.
Alright, so Ragnaros is down, and so is one of the main ways to pop Grommash. Kolento does draw another thing to play this turn. Naxxramas could be useful, but your opponent has so many cards, and it's just the same exact scenario. If Paladin can get away without using premium removal like Equality, and use minions instead to trade, then they're just so well suited for the late game. It's almost hilarious how easy it is for Paladin sometimes with how they effectively neuter a bunch of these legendary cards.
Yeah, and you know, Paladin always has a lot of cards in hand because they use their hero power so much instead of playing cards.
Yeah.
So even when you get, you know, what looks like a 3-for-1 or a 4-for-1, you realize, well, those were just, you know, your hero power minions. You didn't actually get a card.
And this is one of the primary ways for Warrior to end the game. Grommash has been dealt with, so his best finisher has now been taken out. And there's only a few more threats, I believe, in Kolento's deck other than Naxxramas. He has his own Sylvanas and he has Ysera. Nothing else comes to mind, though. I think his Cairn was easily dealt with. Ysera does come into hand. He really needs a big card from this, like Ysera's Awakens.
Yeah, but even if he gets that, well, he does get it. But at this point, we're thinking, is it just going to delay the inevitable?
No, I mean, there's a lot of mid-range cards from what Paladin has. So if Ysera can effectively pick off a trade, which I guess Equality is going to be used because that's the best way for Paladin to deal with it. There's ways for him to completely swing the board if Savjz overextends.
Ooh, so chooses to use Holy Light and Sledgebatter instead of Guardian of Kings.
Oh, I forgot about Face's Manipulator. That's also a potential way to climb back if you could face those opponents' really powerful cards.
Yeah, like a Tyrion. Now that Harrison Jones is gone. You know, yesterday we saw someone steal a steal a Tyrion and then get their weapon Harrison Jones. But this can happen this game. If Kolento steals Tyrion, he's gonna keep it. Oh, there it is.
Now, let's see. Are you afraid of your opponent going for like a Sylvanas steal on your Tyrion? Savjz doesn't even think about it. He just realizes this is the best play at the moment because his Guardian of Kings is definitely not as strong as the Tyrion play. But Kolento now has a great target for Faceless and might open up yet another opportunity for him to climb back in this game. It's not over.
Yeah, and he also has ways to pop the Divine Shield and to get rid of the token. So... yeah. Yeah, maybe playing that Tyrion was, you know, kind of rushed at this point, especially since he lost his Silence guy. You know, I see a lot of people who keep the Spellbreaker in their hands till the very end of the game, because the only thing they're afraid of with Paladin is getting their Tyrion copied or stolen. So it's like a safety net, but he doesn't have that anymore. I was gonna have to spend a lot of cards to get rid of that Tyrion. And the weapon is actually threatening his life total. He's at 13, so the weapon alone could kill him.
That's true, but he does have heals. He's got Guardian of Kings, he's got Lay on Hands. So I think the weapon burst isn't what he's concerned about as much as how do I effectively remove this without giving up a lot of my cards. Consecration will allow him to clear the board. But then your plays afterwards are still a little bit weak. I guess you could drop the Pyromancer and Hero Power.
Yeah. So both players getting Ashbringers.
Yeah, and now that Grommash has been used, I think he's feeling really comfortable with his life total. Oh, I don't know about using the second Wild Pyromancer, because I guess you don't have an immediate proc off the equality. But this is for him to rush for damage in a way, because now Warrior all of a sudden is on like a weird clock that Paladin's able to pressure, and all of a sudden a win condition has been set when normally Paladin's just kind of a sit and wait for your opponent to run out of threats.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, those life games probably are going to be really important if the game comes down to a race. But it looks like Kolento does not want to make it into a race. He wants to make it about board still. So recognizes that even though his opponent looks like he's vulnerable, he has a lot of heals in his deck.
Oh
and
man,
those are probably in his hand. Ooh,
Kolento is trying to he's trying to bait as much damage and then Naxxramas himself back up to 15. So this is a kind of a clever way to exhaust one charge of the weapon and get use and even save like a taunter, so that way the weapon's a little bit less effective against his
yeah, for sure,
against his arsenal here.
Killing the Honda Creeper, yeah, so that his tokens get killed by an unstable goal.
Mm-hmm. If he didn't do this Shield Slam, then Kodo actually would end the game. So another heads-up play, Kolento recognizing, well, it still can go wrong if he pushes through and has the 8 damage. Question is, do you want to play Shield Master too?
It wouldn't end the game, right? He was at 10.
Oh, you're right. I forgot about the armor up. Forgot. You're right.
Yeah, but still good. You know, probably not gonna get a lot of armor in the turns to come. So you might think, oh, he should save Shield Slam for, you know, Guardian of Kings, but he's not gonna be able to kill that.
Wow, Savjz is hovering over his last equality because he realizes he also has Humility and Kodo. So the combination is still very strong, and he can take out whatever last few remaining threats. He knows Naxxramas is one of the few cards remaining that he has to be worried about.
Yeah, and it's probably gonna come down this turn, finally.
Yeah, and bounce himself back up to 15 health. Utilize
Yeah.
Ashbringer. And Guardian King staying alive at 5-1 is pretty clutch because now the Kodo comes down and there's 10 damage on the backswing.
Oh, even better than humility.
Yeah, for 2 mana, summon a 3/3. Sounds pretty decent.
Ooh, decides to keep it. Okay, doesn't want to get brawled.
All right, well, Kolento looks like could be on his last turn, but he's pulled out of tighter situations.
Yeah. Oh, does draw a good card for that. But the fact that his opponent has a 5/1 is super annoying. You know, that spite is not going to be able to trigger this turn.
Yeah, if it was on its second life here, the second durability, Kolento
Yeah,
actually is in a spot where he might be able to actually do this, but this has all of a sudden gone to a game of math. He might have to attack this 1/1. Or maybe just attack the face. Either way, the outcome's about the same.
Yeah, I lean towards attacking the face here, but there's probably a lot of math involved that could make either decision correct.
I think Kolento still has Sylvanas too, by the way.
Yeah,
So
I think
if he can survive this and clear, he might be able to disarm whatever Savjz comes out next.
Yes, he doesn't have a lot of threats himself, but again, he does have that hero power, which is in itself a threat.
It's come down to so long that I think Kolento's really worried about what other cards that Savjz could have at his disposal. And it looks like Savjz is going to draw. Oh man, he has the Black Knight off the top, which means he's going to be able to push through. And Savjz is going to go to the finals.
Yep. And it feels like Kolento is not going to be able to defend his title.
Well, a good showing despite not being able to pull out a lot of wins. Kolento showed up a really strong set of games, I feel like. 4-1 was not indicative of some of the